we're continuing talking about data, and we're specifically using the state of California, California dashboard and data that's public. When I go into the California dashboard, California school dashboard, I want to make a note that I will use a school district. I'm going to use a school district in Northern California, nowhere near me, and I'm just going to pick a school district. So let's jump in to the California dashboard and look at what it means. And if you're a principal or a teacher and you're like, what do I need to do with this data, and how can it inform what I'm going to do this year, what I did well, what do I need to improve on, and how can I inform my instruction and interventions. This is the California dashboard. It's purple, my favorite color. And then there is this dial up here. And I'm going to show you what that is. So I figured let's just go to, we'll go to Berkeley Unified. It's in Northern California. I've never been there. I've never seen any of their data until just now. I mean, this year's data. I've seen previous years because I like to play in the data to see what school districts are doing around the state of California. Well, this is the dashboard. You can generate a PDF. You can look at all schools at once. You can, just by clicking on it, you can see all the schools at once. And I'm going to go back because I don't want to look at all schools. And you can view additional reports. Play with that at your leisure. But what this does is it gives you some specific areas. These are the academic performance indicators for Berkeley. And then we have what we call local indicators. So these are the ones that you will see: chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, English learner progress, graduation rate, college and career, English language arts, mathematics. And then you have the local indicators. This is information that the school district will provide based on their what's happening in their district. So we'll come down here. First, you will see the enrollment for the school district. And I want to point out this is Berkeley Unified. So just above 9,000 students. And it gives you more information. If you wanted to click on it, you can see the demographic student groups here. These groups right here, SED or socioeconomically disadvantaged, English learner, and foster youth are considered our unduplicated pupil population, meaning if they're in any of those groups, they're only counted once. Then you have homeless and students with disability, and then you have race and ethnicity here. It gives you the total population, and then it gives you the percentages of each group. Then it gives you these three groups, which are, again, unduplicated pupil population, meaning if a student is socioeconomically disadvantaged and English learner and foster youth, they're only going to be counted once. Okay, then we can come down here. Now, as I scroll, I want you to see this. I'm going to just kind of hover over this. We have what's called the performance indicators. It looks like the light spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Indigo or violet is purple. Hence, maybe that's why the background is in purple. I don't know, but it works for me. So lowest performance, meaning very low, is red, and it goes up to low, medium, high, and very high. So very high is blue. This doesn't mean we're not looking at comparable data when I was in, say, the state data here. So I'm just going to type in Berkeley Unified. I want Berkeley Unified to pop up. So when I look at Berkeley Unified, this is what this means here. This data is looking at whether or not students met or exceeded in that academic area. This is telling us whether or not students improved over time. Okay. So if I click on language for English language arts, it tells me that 36.3 points above standard. So all of the students together collectively, I'm not looking at the distance from standard. That is a math problem. I'll show you that if I have a moment. Meaning they didn't get better or worse. They just maintained. So they're in the green. We want to get them in the green and the blue. We want them to move away from the red. Remember, I told you if you scroll a little bit down here, we want to get them in the high to very high performance level. So all students, so out of all these students that took the assessment, because remember, it's 3rd through 8th grade and 1 grade in 11th grade, 1 grade in high school, 11th grade. So that means this is comparable data. So we're probably not using 3rd grade because there's really not comparable data. But we're looking at comparable data as a whole. Well, actually, no, that's not true. We're looking at the whole system. So I digress. That was incorrect. We're looking at the whole data system. And And if you wanted to comment and correct me, please do so in the comments, because I am not perfect. I don't know everything, but I do like looking at this data, and I would love for you to chat with me about it. So now you have each student group here. And it's showing you that African American here are in red, and orange is these student groups: English learners, homeless, SCD, students with disability are in orange, yellow, Hispanic, and so on. And then it comes down here and it tells you some information about the student group. You can select any of these. And this one tells you that the students are 74.2 points below standard as a whole. So out of the 528 students, they declined by 5 points. So if they had maintained, they may have, let's say they were orange last year, we could probably look at that. Then as a matter of fact, we can look at that. You can change it by year. So if we just do that, we come down here and let's see. So African Americans were in, I'm going to pause for a second and say this was a start over year because of COVID. So there were no colors, and this wasn't comparable data. This was how they did as a whole. And African American, if this were a color, it would have been orange. Okay. So they were here, but because they declined, they were given a band of very low. So if I were in this district, I'd be like, okay, so what are we going to do differently? Data's not, some of us, if it gets really emotional. For me, if I were at the school site or school district, I'd say, okay, what are we going to do for this student group here? Like, where are they? What are we going to do for the student groups here? Like, they declined here. This one increased, like homeless. Okay, yay. Declined SED. And it tells you some good data, like 47.6 points below standard. And some of you are like, well, what does that mean? So I'm going to show you a PDF to kind of explain what that means. So the idea of what are we going to do, it says 36.3 points above standard. And then some of these are below standard. Even if they are, let's just go to mathematics. So our student groups here, if we're in orange, 104.9 points below standard. Well, here, some of these student groups, notice that this one's 57.8 points below standard. Now, if they increase, they come out of, typically they come by I believe 3% or something like that. Don't quote me on that. There's a 5-point grid that you can look at. But if they increase a certain number of points, they move out of the band before that, or into the next band, above or below. If it's a lot of points, like let's say they were in the blue and they declined by a substantial amount of points, they could go down a couple of bands. But the idea is to help the student group, look at the student group, help the student group, intervene, accelerate, whatever it is that we can do differently. But the question is, well, how do you know 17.2 points above standard? What does that mean? Well, the state of California has what is called the Academic Indicator Report, the distance from standard. This is a math problem. So the idea is to get them to level 3. And it'll give you an example. A grade 3 student receives an ELA score of 2420. The student has a difference, DFS, or distance from standards, of -12, because their score is 12 points below the lowest possible score for the standard met level. So the idea was to get them here. And you take this number, take this number minus this number. So what they do is then this is what happens. They take all of the students and they get a distance from standard. And they add those together and divide by the number of students. And that'll tell you whether or not the entire school or the student group is either increased or decreased. And then it tells you how many points they are above or below the standard. I know it's a lot, but I will put this PDF link in the description. So that can help you a little bit about understanding that. But I wanted to point out one other thing, and I wasn't sure that I mentioned it, and I may have said that it's not there, but it is there. You can look at the state indicator. Let's say you just want to have a big picture conversation. Maybe you want to, maybe you're a real estate agent and you're like, I need to give this information out, but I need it to be equitable because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can say, you can go here and find all the information that you have. You can give this website to every one of your clients, and they all will get the same data and they can make their own decision. You don't have to make it for them. Because the idea is students are going to do well wherever they go if they have a support group that's going to help them do well, regardless of how other students are doing, as long as it's a safe environment. However, if students don't have access, that's another question. So we can look at this as a whole, how many students are enrolled in the state of California. You can look at the demographic groups, because sometimes this here is a lot higher in other school districts, depending on the student groups here. But this is overall in the state of California. And then we can look at, which is really nice to look at, like looking at English language arts for the state of California, because then you can kind of see, well, there's some similarities across the board comparing districts. And again, as much as we can get really upset at data, but if I were a parent, I'd go, okay, so what do I need to do to go to a school district to say, how can I help my child? Like, I can't make this change today, but what can I do differently to support my child? And is my child getting what they need at the school site? Those are things because you want to work with the school. And because you can get worked up over things all day long about how students are doing. So this is just something I want you to kind of look at and play with. This is really good information as a principal or a school site to have these conversations. And if you're a principal, present this data to your families. It is not a secret. It becomes a secret when they find out and you didn't tell them. Show them where it is, talk about it, have small groups with parents, have small groups with teachers, and say, what can we do differently to inform the instruction and interventions at our school site? Please put in the comments about, as a principal, what do you do with your data? How do you provide professional development for your teachers? How do you inform your community with the data that you have? So it's not a secret. Learning isn't a secret, but it becomes a secret when parents don't know how to help their kids. It becomes a secret when teachers are like, I need training in this. Teachers, sometimes your new teachers come out of schools and they're like, I don't remember learning that. And if they did learn it, it was so much information, they need some help and guidance. Your veteran teachers are great to go to because they know the ins and outs. And they need some professional development because of the exponential changes that are happening in the education, specifically with artificial intelligence and the way we use online platforms, and then the effect size of whether or not they should be using this platform or should they be using offering direct instruction. So let me know what you think. Come back often and comment. Tell me what is going on in your school site and if you're using data to inform your instruction, your interventions, and having conversations with your families. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe.